This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen, Shane Dale, and a special guest, the only guy that we let co-host the entire show. It is former Arizona football SID Blair Willis. We have a lot to talk about tonight. If you want basketball talk, there will be many other weeks of basketball talk.
We'll do a little bit of that.
A little bit.
Just so people know.
But this is a football-heavy show. We all know what happened in the Holiday Bowl. It did not go our way. Shane and I were there. I got to hang out the entire time. He was recognized by a gentleman who liked his book. Came up to him and said, "Hey, Shane, like your book." That was pretty cool.
And then he said, "Hey, Eric, like the podcast." I didn't get that, even though I co-host with you, but whatever.
Well, you got the book. So, Blair, you watched the entire game. Some quick thoughts before we go into the nitty-gritty. Give me some quick thoughts on what you saw from Arizona football on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, first off, bowl games are always a little bit interesting, and especially when you play one so late in the calendar, year. Arizona football hasn't played many games in January 1 or January 2nd like this one was. So it was a long layoff, and you just kind of almost forgot like what it was like to watch this team play, and you're kind of anxious, and then kickoff comes at 6:00 here in Tucson. You put the TV on, you got Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt, and you're all fired up, and then man, a couple plays into that game, and SMU's got the momentum, and our offense couldn't get on track. And, I thought we kind of competed a little bit. We did a few things on offense. We could get a first down or two to get a drive, and a penalty would set us back. And defense, got a stop on the second possession and had a couple third downs that they put SMU in. But that thing just got away from the Cats there, in the second quarter and before halftime. And so you go to halftime and you're sitting there, man, this isn't the team we thought we saw most of this season, and certainly not the team that we saw in November. And I'll tell you what, to this team's credit, to the coaches, the players that that were playing in that game, they really rallied themselves at halftime, and they got themselves back into that thing, and they put up a fight. I was genuinely impressed with how hard they fought in the second half, and that was encouraging, even though it was a tall task to come back from 24 down, and there was a couple plays or a couple decisions here in the second half that maybe even if it had gone a different way, maybe that comeback gets completed. But I watched that game end and put that game away feeling actually pretty good that they were a little bit shorthanded. Things didn't go their way early, but they fought the way I knew that team could fight. And in the big picture, it's a bowl game. It was still a 9-win season, which was more than almost anybody else expected. Mm-hmm. Noah Fafita coming back. It looks like the two coordinators are coming back. And so as disappointing as that taste was, me sitting on my couch at home because I wasn't able to make it out to San Diego. I told you guys before I got a baby boy coming in February, so just family, we're getting ready for that. And it just didn't work out timing-wise for me to get out to San Diego for that one. So it would probably been even more disappointing if I was there in person like you two were. But big picture, tough loss. I wish we'd have played better. I really do. I wish we'd have played better. But it's okay. I really like the way the team fought.
I think that's a great high-level overview of everything, and we'll dig deeper. Obviously, that's a great high-level overview that you hit on. All right, Shane, I know you have a lot to say about this game, but I just kind of want to give an overview of what you and I experienced. You got me a ticket to the game. I have a media pass behind me, but I didn't. You ended up using it because you got me a ticket. We sat in the upper deck for which were good seats, fifth row of the upper deck on the Arizona sideline for the first half. We went down in the end zone. Shane will explain that more. Stood there in the third quarter and actually sat in the 11th row or the 12th row near the end zone where Arizona scored the two touchdowns in the fourth. So we got a good vantage point of Snapdragon Stadium, Shane.
No, it was great to hang out. Like, you and I, Eric, we don't live that far apart, but we see each other maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So this was awesome.
45, 50 miles apart.
Yeah, well, still. We end up meeting, 400 miles west in San Diego. But it was great to hang out. We finally met our guy Barrett Baker in person. I now consider him 2-0 in the Holiday Bowl after winning the Thrifty Scoop and Score Ice Cream Challenge. He won free ice cream for a year. He and his partner Spencer Larson beat the SMU guys out for this little in-game competition. Highlight of the first half, certainly for Arizona. He was the only Arizona player that scored in the first half. But we saw him. It was great to see him at halftime and chat a little bit. We saw our guy, Jeff Dean, the original co-host of this show, and, of course, the PA announcer for football and men's basketball. He was actually able to sit there and enjoy a game, or at least enjoy some of the game.
I was going to say, I don't think he enjoyed the first half.
Yeah. But he's actually able to sit there without having to call it. Like I said, we moved around a couple times. I felt like it was kind of like a 3-act play. We watched the first half from our designated seats. We watched the third quarter, most of the third quarter from behind one of the end zones. And then we snuck down to some lower seats in the fourth quarter and had a nice view of both of Arizona's fourth quarter touchdowns, which was pretty cool. I took the family with me to San Diego. They didn't go to the game, but we spent Friday and Saturday at Legoland. Our 6-year-old son had a blast. He went on his first roller coaster. He cried at the time because it was scary, but then he decided the next morning, of course, that he loved it. Like you know what? Like our friend Scooby Wright says, control what you can control, right? Like I couldn't control the outcome of the game. I went to the 2009 Holiday Bowl. They got their butt kicked. That was the only reason I went out there and came back, and it was disappointing. So, it looked like it was going to go the same way for a half or so. But, we were able to control the rest of our time in San Diego and Carlsbad, where Legoland is, and we enjoyed it. Look, Arizona fans showed out for this game too. Yes, I think the ratio of Arizona to SMU fans was bigger in U of A's favor
80-20, in my opinion.
Yeah, than the game against BYU in Tucson. Yeah. It sounded like a home game at Snapdragon. Even when SMU scored, you didn't hear a ton of cheering from the other side of the stadium. So it was a really good turnout for U of A. It felt like a home game. They got loud, especially in the second half when the team was rallying a bit. And so it was a fun atmosphere. At least they put up a good fight, unlike 2009. I felt like I got my money's worth to a certain extent. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But it was a great experience, and I'm glad I went and took the family.
Yeah, it was a great time. Barrett Baker's the real deal, man. What a cool guy. We see him on this show, and Blair, you know him, but Shane and I had never met him in person, even though we've had him on this show 25 times.
Which is kind of crazy to think about. We've had him on so many times.
But getting to meet him, I mean, it was like, a long lost brother. I mean, it was really cool, that experience, and to see other friends at the game, just a wide swath of people that we ran into, which was a lot of fun. And the entire experience, it was like sitting under a mist in the fourth quarter. People were saying, was it raining? It's like you were under misters. It wasn't anything that would affect the game itself, but
it was not fun to drive in either. I experienced that on the drive into San Diego and sort of on the drive back that night too.
I can imagine. Yeah, it was not fun. I will say this as somebody who likes to put a couple bucks on the game. I did have, and Shane knows this, I had an alternate spread bet. I had Arizona plus 7.5 and over 40.5. And when they're down 24-0 at halftime, that's a loser. And that was Blair. That's what we call the ultimate and backdoor covers.
I'm happy for you, Eric. I'm glad they covered it for you, man.
Now we have a lot to let's break down the game here. And this is buy or sell, and we're gonna some buys and some sells. But okay, well, some questions are off the radar here. But let's start with the buy or sell here. Number one, and I'll start with you, Blair. It makes sense that Traden Stukes sat out last Friday, but he's coming off a knee injury. But Genesis Smith and Dalton Johnson let down their teammates. Buy or sell?
Yeah, this is a hotly debated issue, and everybody's got their opinions, and everybody's entitled to their opinions, especially fans that went to the game and supported the team in person and invested in that time out there. The way I've kind of boiled it down, I've given it a lot of thought because it is a unique situation, and actually each of their situations are unique. It's a unique time in college football, so it's not to me as cut and dry as it was 10 or 15 years ago when you say you finish what you start and you're quitting on your team and things like that. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. I think it's a little bit more layered to that, and so I really look at it really from each individual's perspective. I think a lot of us understood for the Alamo Bowl a couple years ago, when Jordan Morgan set out that game. And it was kind of known going into it, which I think was maybe the difference. It was pretty widely known and widely accepted that he was going to be out that game. Certainly, this year the team knew that these three guys were going to be out, so it's not like they just quit on the team the day of the game. They were able to prepare for it. I think that's the one thing I would correct from all of this is I think, if Coach Brennan and the staff had known about this for a couple weeks, which they did, I think that should probably be communicated to the fans as much as anything.
Yes.
I think that would have smoothed over a lot of this. In terms of what their actual decisions are, I think Traden Stukes had a very good reason to sit out. He had a pretty significant injury a year ago. Had a slow comeback early in the season, missed the first couple games, and then was able to play the last 10. And he had played incredibly well, an All-American caliber player, and he's going to get a chance to play in the NFL. It makes sense coming off that significant injury a year ago to rest and get yourself ready for what's to come in the All-Star games and the Combine if he gets invited to that and things like that. I think Dalton Johnson's a very unique case. I probably a handful of years ago would have said Dalton needed to play in this game, but when you look at Dalton Johnson's career, similar to Traden, he's been here a lot. He's played 50 games in his career. 5 years ago when he came in, and that's Kevin Sumlin recruiting class, of which he's the only one still here, no one thought Dalton Johnson was going to get a chance to play in the NFL or play professional football beyond college. Certainly not when Jed Fish's first year, when we were struggling to beat anybody, stay competitive against anybody. Certainly not when he had a couple great moments in 2022 and getting a turnover in the Territorial Cup that we won at Arizona Stadium. You just thought if you fast forward 3-4 years from that time point that Arizona might lose the Holiday Bowl because Dalton Johnson won't play. You wouldn't have thought of it like that a few years ago. And so knowing that he's a few weeks away from getting to play in an all-star game, to get in front of NFL scouts, to live a dream that a lot of us, none of us have, ever had the reality of potentially, making an NFL team or a practice squad or anything like that. I look at it a little bit differently. I understand it given everything he went through and everything he's given the program. Genesis Smith, also a completely different situation. He's a guy that does have an extra year of college eligibility if he wanted to come back. He's clearly made the decision with the people around him that he wanted to go to the NFL draft. I don't know that he's a high enough draft pick this year to just be a slam dunk, let me sit out, not play a game, not be able to put more film out there. Again, personal decision. Long story short, it's disappointing those guys didn't play. I understand their individual decisions, and if anybody's going to judge them for it, it's the locker room. It's their teammates, and especially their seniors in that room that were playing their last college game, probably their last football game of their life. If they want to judge those players, they can. I think there was a good enough chemistry and camaraderie in that locker room that they all understood and respected the individual decisions, and they went in thinking that they were going to win, and ultimately they just came up a little bit short.
I think you hit on a few good points, Blair. Brent Brennan, they should have communicated to the fans, hey, these guys are out and whatever. To wait until game day when we're walking in the stadium and seeing, tweets of what's going on. I looked at Shane and we're like, what in the actual, what? Like, this is not cool. Shane, did you notice that in Genesis Smith's post the other day, thanking Arizona, he thanked Jed Fish, he thanked Dwayne Aquina, he did not thank Danny Gonzalez. So I wonder if there was something behind the scenes that we don't know about.
I don't know. I don't like to go down that rabbit hole, and honestly don't care that much. I mean, he's off to the NFL, presumably. So, I'll just go through my thought process since you guys shared yours. When I learned about it before the game that those three guys weren't going to play, and when I was watching Arizona then getting destroyed in the first half, largely because of it, I got a little irrationally angry about it. But considering the journeys that Dalton and Traden took with this team, and even Genesis, I'm not going to beat them up about it. Especially, look, after what we saw happen to Ty Buchanan in the first quarter. Yeah, I get it. I understand not wanting to take the risk. What I don't, you guys hit on this already, but I'm going to say it too. What I don't like is the fact that Arizona knew for 3 weeks that these guys weren't going to play. A lot of fans spent good money buying tickets, getting out to San Diego, not just to see Arizona play, but because they expected to see Arizona put its best foot forward in terms of personnel on the field. There was no reason not to think that. And to not disclose that information until right before the game, I was trying to think of a parallel, and the best one I can think of is it's like if WWE, and yes, I'm still a pro wrestling fan, okay, if WWE announced a lot of big names for a pay-per-view and then announced, like pulled a third of those names right before the event, and they knew about it for weeks and didn't tell fans. Not exactly apples to apples because one's scripted and the other's not. I get it, but it's the closest analogy I could come up with. I get that injuries happen. You're not guaranteed to see any player actually play on a given day. Those things happen. Sometimes they happen at the last minute. Sometimes they happen in pregame warmups. This was not that case. Okay. To me, if you want to encourage fans to come out to games, and Arizona's been adamant about that, like almost pleading with fans. You've been practically begging them to come to games. And then they do. They come out in droves to San Diego. I'm sure a lot of them were local to the area, but still a lot of people traveled like we did, Eric. From my perspective, you ask them to come out, and then you're not honest about who they're going to see.
You're right.
Early.
Yeah.
I get the opt-outs. That I don't like. I don't think it's, I understand the rationale, but I don't like it. Now, 2 years ago, we knew Jordan Morgan wasn't going to play. It was announced before the game. We all understood it. He was going to be a first-round pick. I get that. This was a different situation. And, the rules of college football haven't changed that much in just those 2 years. So I didn't like it. I get why they opted out. I did not like the non-disclosure aspect of it at all.
And the other thing, too, to just piggyback off that, Shane, what I think is unfair to those young men, especially Dalton and Trayton, it took away their platform to basically give their appreciation to the program. I mean, if they could have put out one of their statements, put out their social media graphics beforehand 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, heck, even the day the team was going to San Diego, like leaving 4 days before the game, just give them that platform to kind of get their send-off. There's still going to be people that don't agree with the decision and don't like that they're not going to play, but a lot more people are going to come around to it and give them their shout-out and their kudos.
It would have generated a lot more goodwill. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, so this one's on the coaching staff. Okay, fine. Well, we can acknowledge that. Now, Arizona falls behind 24-0. We know the defense didn't look good in the first half. What the hell happened to the offense, Blair, in the first half?
Well, Shane kind of touched on it a little bit. Ty Buchanan goes down on about the fifth play of the game.
Early, yeah.
I think I watched quite a bit of SMU Cal, SMU's last regular season game of the year when they were trying to get into the ACC championship game, and they lost up there in Berkeley. We all know weird things happen in Berkeley, and now the ACC's been finding out some of that stuff here the last couple of years. But SMU, I thought SMU, especially early, those first 4 or 5 possessions of the game, blitzed us a lot and brought a lot more pressure down to the line of scrimmage than they did against Cal. And so I think we were kind of caught off guard, seeing some things that we hadn't seen or anticipated. And then it just gets magnified by that, your left tackle going down on like the 4th or 5th play. And it just took us some time to adjust. We still did some nice things at times. We got some drives going out towards midfield, but we would have some untimely penalties that set us back. We had a couple with the offensive line, a holding penalty, I think maybe a false start. Gio Richardson had a legal blindside block on a play that looked like it might be a big run for Kedrick Risano. So we kind of had some things there. It was that clunky start you get when you have a layoff, and then again, we just had to kind of weather that storm of that pressure SMU was bringing as part of their game plan with a backup left tackle. Again, I kind of point to the positives, that, hey, Noah Fafita, that kid is one tough son of a gun. And what a great Wildcat to have. And he and Seth Dagey and the rest of the offense, that offensive line, they figured some things out there in that second half and gave us a fighting chance. So, yeah, disappointing start, Eric. I just attribute a lot, give credit to SMU, kind of threw some things at us that got us on our heels a little bit. And then it was a tough injury to overcome when you move, we're down both tackles now because, obviously, Tristan Bowens was out for the rest of the year, those last 3 or 4 games. And then now you're down your, probably your best overall offensive lineman that we had this year in Ty Buchanan. So.
Yeah, it was the whole thing in the first half was like, what is this team sleepwalking? Like, what are we doing here? With that said, the amount of heart that this team showed in the second half was, there's no such thing as a good loss. And there's no such, like, Shane and I are talking at halftime. We see Jeff Dean, we see Barrett, and we're like, this is an embarrassment. The last 6 quarters in San Diego in a bowl game, it's 57-0.
57-0, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a joke. Brent Brennan, what are you doing? And this team showed a lot of heart. Now, I'm going to say this. Kevin Jennings from SMU was so horrible in the second half. It was like, I mean, literally, Shane, I think I said this to you live. I was like, this dude's on the take. Like, it's
call
like
him call him Headache Jennings.
I mean, Shane, he literally tried to give Arizona that game.
Well,
3 interceptions, and the defense played better. But, also SMU, let's be honest. If Arizona, and we'll talk about Brent Brennan's math skills in a second. SMU also had a 4th and 1 that they could have gone for and ended the game, and they punted and gave Arizona another chance. That's another story. Shane, go ahead about your thoughts on what we saw in the second half.
You could make an argument that of all the outstanding coaching jobs that Danny Gonzalez did this season, that this game was his best. They got rolled in the first half without their leading guys on the secondary. It took them a while to adjust. The second play of the game, they have the flea flicker that goes for like 80 yards. But for the 3rd straight game, they didn't allow a point in the second half, and they had a +2 turnover margin. And like you said, part of that was Kevin Jennings making some inexplicable throws in the second half. But still, great job by the defense to adjust as they have all season. Michael Dansby in particular was outstanding. The interception that he got in the 3rd quarter it turned the game around and gave Arizona a chance. It got them back in. It got the crowd into it for the first time since the game started. But yeah, too much went wrong offensively in the first half. Noah Fifita looked out of sync for a while for the reasons that Blair mentioned. I wasn't crazy about some of the play selection either. I think the best thing Arizona had going in the first half was Ismail Mahdi running the ball, and he wasn't out there nearly enough, in my opinion.
You kept getting upset about that too.
Yes, I did, and I'm still not too crazy about it. I know we're going to talk about the decision making in the second half, but look. It's okay to credit SMU a little bit. They deserve some credit for their defense. Especially the coverage for a good chunk of the game as well. You can't lay an egg like that in the first half. You can't. Arizona rallied to win 4 straight games going into this one, but 24 points was just a bridge too far, especially against a team that like we talked about. They didn't come far away from advancing to the CFP for the 2nd straight year. They should have gone to the ACC championship game, probably would have won it. They were in the CFP last year. They're a very good team, probably the 2nd best team, right behind BYU that Arizona's faced all year. So again, it was. I felt like I got my money's worth in spite of the guys who sat out. I'm not crazy about again how that happened, but I walked away feeling like okay, good time. Met up with some people, ready to enjoy the next day at Legoland with my family, and I did the famous sports writer wrote over a century ago. They fought like Wildcats. They definitely fought in the second half.
Blair, let's talk a little math here. Okay, Arizona is down 24-0. They score 24-6. All right, so at that point you go for 2 because you 8-8-8 and you're tied. So okay, fine. We're not going to argue with that one. Arizona has 4th and 6 at the 9-yard line or thereabouts in the 3rd quarter. What do you do at that point?
I go for it.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm kicking.
Here's funny. I thought about this question. Yeah. I saw Shane's tweet. I don't know, was it before the game or was it at halftime? I saw Shane's tweet about our field goal kicker.
Yeah. I was watching.
I'm serious. I don't want to.
He was just like doing basic warm-ups 30 yards away, and he kept shanking them. It was
at halftime. He was Shane's right.
Not too bad. Mike. I like Michael Salgado.
I do too.
The better field goal operation. He's much better next year. But I would have gone for it in that situation just because we were, like you just said, we're down 24-0.
24-6 at that. 24-6 at that.
Well, no. We were down with 2 minutes to go in the 3rd quarter, 24-0.
Right.
You almost never come back from a 24-point deficit in the second half of a game. Now it's 24-6. We can take the field goal. I don't know if it's automatic. I mean, what are we probably thinking about? 80, 85%?
80%.
We're going to make that
80% for that kick, which would have been a 26-yarder.
Yeah, and so we're going to go from an 18-point down to 15 points. So it would get you into having the ball twice. Yeah. But you're still now talking, with only about 15 minutes left against a team that's already scored 24 points on you, you're still going to have to overcome a 15-point deficit. That's going to be much harder to still overcome. The odds are just not really with you. I was happy to go for it. I thought we had a great play. I loved the passing the passing concept we had on that. I don't know if it was if Chris Hudson just turned the wrong way, or if Noah kind of rushed that thing and threw it behind him. It was wide open for a touchdown. I had no problem with the decision to go for it. I had no decision with the play. We just didn't complete the pass. Coming back from that large of a deficit when we had only scored one touchdown in 3 quarters basically, I had no problem going for it, because if we couldn't score a touchdown there, we're probably not going to score the 2 more touchdowns we need to win the game. So I didn't have a problem with that one, Eric.
Okay, so then it's 24-6. They score again. Now, basic math, and Shane, I'm going to let you comment because you were pissed when this happened, we'll say. It's 24-12. Now, you kick the extra point, then you are down a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, and a field goal from winning the game, and Brent Brennan inexplicably goes for 2. That one, I think, is the hardest one to justify, Shane.
Yeah, well, and you have to go for 2 at some point. I mean, presumably they kick the extra point and they get another touchdown. They got to go for 2 again anyway.
But you got to keep yourself to it.
I agree with you. Well, first of all, Arizona's not great from that far out. Like 2-3 yards away from the goal line. They're just not built for that situation. So, you had to go for 2 at some point. I remember J.J. Watt and Greg Olson got into a debate about this on X a few weeks ago when, was it the Steelers? They were down 10. They went for I forget exactly the situation, but basically, you have to go for 2 at one point or the other. And J.J. Watt's arguing, well, you got to wait until later, so at least the team knows you have a chance to tie late, whatever it was. And then Greg Olson's like, well, you got to do it sometime, so why not sooner rather than later? So it was more that there were things I was more pissed about than that in the game. Don't get me. So I just want to clarify that, but it was more that Arizona's just not great in that situation, And the first one, they got a pass interference call and they had a chance to score from the 1.5, and they ran the ball and that didn't work. But I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I would have kicked the PAT in that situation. But again, like Blair said, coming back from 24-0 is difficult as it is, and they still had their chances. I mean, they had they went for on the 4th down, and they got the ball back after the third interception, and then Fafita throws a pass that's tipped and SMU intercepts it. So if Arizona would have converted more drives, it wouldn't have been an issue in the first place.
That's fair. And my thing is, all right, so Arizona, let's say at that point they kicked the field goal when I think they should have, and let's say they had gone the touchdown and extra point, it's 24-16. Let's be honest, all things being equal, if it's that case and SMU has 4th and 1, they're going for it at the 50. They're going for it, and they're probably getting it, and the game's over.
I was surprised they didn't in the first.
I was surprised too. I thought it was a very gutless call by Red.
But it worked out well for you in your parlay, didn't it?
It was incredible. When things generally don't go my way, and I honestly don't know what SMU is doing in the second half.
Yeah, I was going to say, Eric. Part of it goes to SMU and their execution and their decision making and the quarterback play that you described. Although I thought Jennings had about 3 passes in the first half that were as well placed and well timed to his receivers. Yeah. Outside, Rocco Becht had a great game when we played Iowa State back in September. And then Jennings in that first half, I thought this is Rocco Becht all over again against our man coverage. And then in the second half came around. I don't want to take away what our team did, our offense, our defense, even our special teams did there in that, second half, because we almost came back from a 24-point deficit with the mistakes that we're highlighting right here of turning it over on downs. We threw an interception in there. We actually had possessions to spare somehow in that comeback, even though we were shut out for the first all but 2 minutes of the third quarter. But we didn't score till there was about 17 minutes left in the game, and we still wasted a couple possessions in that comeback attempt.
And by the way, that onside kick wasn't bad. If it was a little bit higher, Arizona gets the ball with 30 seconds left, and you never know. But we're doing so many woulda, coulda, shouldas. But while we're on that subject, I just thought I'd throw that one in there.
Shane, I didn't go back and watch the onside kick, so I didn't know how good. I mean,
it was a decent kick.
It was a bullet. It took a big hop.
Yeah,
it was
not
about
quite high enough.
It was about 6 inches too close to him because he got short hop, but like Shane said, he was able to get his full hands on it.
Yeah.
It was just a good catch. I would say it's 50-50 of how often that that player is going to catch that on that front line, because it was at a lot of top spin and it took the big hop. It was just a little low.
Yep.
I mean, if Arizona had done that, Blair, you were obvious. I assume you were at that New Mexico Bowl back in 2012, where I mean, that's probably the greatest comeback I could, the second greatest comeback I can remember from an Arizona team in the last 25 years behind the Cal Hail Mary game, which was
Yeah.
the best Arizona. This was if they had gotten the onside kick, I believe Arizona would have scored, and then we're probably talking like greatest Arizona comeback in our lifetime. Probably. Nonetheless, okay. Results. The game was what it was. We've beat that to death, and that's good. There's a lot to talk about. Let's talk about 2026. The roster retention seems to be good. Noah's coming back as of now. Daigie's coming back. Doesn't seem like Danny Gonzalez is going anywhere. Blair, what are fair expectations in your opinion for 2026?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little early to say, Eric, in terms of like, real specific numbers, but I think we can expect to be a bowl team next year. And I'll just kind of leave it open-ended. I mean, is that another Holiday Bowl type season? Is that something more? Is it just a 6-6 season and you're playing in, I don't know what the Big 12 bowls are going to be next year. I think we're finally out of the Pac-12 bowl situation tie-ins next year. So we'll see what that shapes up. I think we should be a pretty competitive team if we're able to reload in the portal. It's easier said than done. But I really liked the formula that the program used last offseason. I thought they retooled the offensive line. They got some real, key players. Danny Gonzalez defensively did a great job, filling some gaps on the defensive line and particularly at linebacker and at cornerback through the portal last year. So I think they know what they want. I think they have a plan for who they want to go get and how they're going to get it, given our resources. I mean, let's be honest, we're not Texas Tech. I don't know how these NIL
Big
deals
12
work
is.
now, but we're not going to go spend $5 million on a single player. We're going to divvy that up across a bunch of different players to fill some major needs that we have on the offensive line. We've got to get several tight ends in here because I think Cameron Barmore. Let's shout out a Wildcat real quick.
Yeah.
Cameron Barmore improved as much as anybody on that team this year. For a guy that had never really played tight end, we didn't think he was even going to play until about the fourth or fifth game. And then he became Mr. Reliable for us down the stretch of the season. So that's an important position in Seth Daigie's offense. And we're going to need to get 2 or 3 bodies in there. I mentioned offensive line. We need a couple of receivers. We got to replace Chris Hudson and hopefully get even a more dynamic player on the outside for Noah. Defensively, we got to replace safeties. We got to replace cornerbacks, a couple linebackers, and then hopefully get a big body on the interior. So to answer your question, Eric, of what do we expect for next year, right now I'd say I think we can play in a bowl, given the fact our 2 coordinators are coming back. We've got a lot of stability across the roster. Noah Fafita is going to be a senior. It'll finally be his second time really in a system for the second year. So if we do our job in the portal, and we don't need to hit home runs and get a bunch of NFL first-round picks necessarily, but if we just do our job and replace our players with guys that fit our culture, that want to come here and get developed and play as a team, then we can have another 8, 9, 10 win season next year. But a lot remains to be seen of how much we can replace and how adequately we replace it right now.
Now, Blair, I know we'll probably have you on to break down the schedule when it's released, probably sometime this month or, in the spring. We'll break down, the matchups. Obviously, it looks a lot harder on paper. Shane, your expectations as of now for 2026 for Arizona football?
I would say bowl game should be the expectation. I do think even with presumably Seth Daiggie and Danny Gonzalez coming back, I think losing Geiska Crowley and Alonzo Carter are big deals. I mean, Alonzo Carter, remember, wasn't just a running backs coach. He was the assistant head coach for Brent Brennan. Brent Brennan's right-hand man for a long time, and I think that's going to be a big deal. But then just looking at the schedule real quick, 2 presumably easy wins at home. At Washington State, you got a new head coach, but it's always a tricky trip. Who knows? And then, at BYU, at Texas Tech, at Kansas State, presumably K-State will be back on, well, who knows. Iowa State, and that looks like, a very winnable game at this point with them in flux. Utah at home is going to be interesting. They got a new head coach. ASU is going to be very difficult. So we'll get more into the schedule later. It certainly, as of now, looks more difficult than this past year's, even though they have 5 home games in conference now as opposed to 4. But there's a lot of holes to fill. I was certainly having your starting quarterback returning and having that dynamic and the relationship with, Noah Fafita actually having an offensive coordinator coming back for another year, I think is massive. I think that's like at least a third of the puzzle, if not half. But a lot of holes to fill. But obviously, like Blair said, these guys are really good at evaluating talent, getting, I always think back to what Rich Rodriguez called the OKGs, our kind of guys, which is kind of his way of saying we're not going to get the 5-star guys, but we got to find those guys that maybe slip through the cracks that other people aren't appreciated and aren't quite seen. And of course, now with the NIL era, the transfer portal era, that's even more important. And the staff is good at that, despite losing some of the guys they have. So I wanted this program to get to a place where they have stability, at least at head coach, and a bowl game is the minimum expectation every year. And I think that we're just about at that point. Certainly a bowl game at minimum should be the expectation based on what happened this past season and based on the guys returning and what we know this team can do in the transfer portal.
I think a 7-5 season, even with that difficult schedule, send Noah out on a winning note. He'll be, I believe, at that point, Blair, you probably can tell us. So at that point, Noah would have something like 8, 12, 17, 21. So he has 21 wins right now, something like that. And he would have, with another 7 or 8 win season, 27 to 28 wins. I mean, that's got to be right up there with any quarterback in Arizona history, right?
Yeah, it would be. The thing you don't worry about with Noah, but we got to get an offensive line to protect him. I mean, he's been very durable. He's been healthy. Fortunately, knock on wood, he's been healthy. But we got to get him an offensive line, and if we do, I think he's going to pass for more yards next year. I think he'll set pretty much every career record we have, positive career record at quarterback, and yeah, the wins tally could sneak up there, pretty high. So I'm certainly. I texted a friend of mine a couple nights ago. I said, how lucky are we to have Noah Fafita these last few years amongst all this chaos, all this craziness with the portal, these salary, these NIL deals for these quarterbacks, and teams almost trading quarterbacks. It seems like we've had Noah Fafita, just a great young man, incredible competitor, great teammate. I just love that kid.
And I don't know that you're going to see that from a successful Arizona quarterback. You don't know ever again. I mean, you have no idea if they're going to stay 4 years. So I would love to see Noah, get to 30 total wins, something like that, because that's a record that I don't think will be broken by an Arizona quarterback for a long time. Shane, you and I were debating this in person. One last topic: Snapdragon Stadium versus Arizona Stadium. Now, Snapdragon Stadium parking is a disaster. You didn't have to go through that. Thank God.
I got dropped off, fortunately.
Yeah, that was a disaster. But the stadium itself is 30 to 35,000. Blair, you've been there. Were you there at the? No, you weren't there for the game a few years ago. So it's a cool stadium. The bathrooms they don't have enough bathrooms, so there's long lines all the time, which is a problem. But outside of that, a lot of premium seating and such. And Shane, you and I were saying, like, this is what Arizona needs. Like, this is a 40,000 seat version of this.
Well, and just a more modern stadium. I mean, it's tough when you visit a stadium like this, which is, I mean, it's not like 22nd century postmodern or anything, but it's got all seat backs, no slabs. It's got, like premium seating, like really nice, like areas where you can sit and watch a game, like at a restaurant, that kind of thing. And it's probably about the right size as well. Like for San Diego State, certainly, and probably where Arizona Stadium should be now, maybe a little bit more. But yeah, it's difficult to go from that to Arizona Stadium where you just don't have those amenities. I mean, you can come up with as many promotions as you want, and live music and halftime shows, but there's no replacement for having a more modern stadium, and I know that's just not feasible at the moment. Like like you mentioned, Eric, where if Arizona just completely bulldozed that stadium or bulldozed a good chunk of it, where would they play for a couple? Like they don't have an option in Tucson, like a team in San Diego or like Northwestern and Chicago and all. So it's just rough. It's rough to go from something like that at Snapdragon Stadium, which was a nice modern college football stadium, going back to Arizona Stadium, which just is not anywhere close to that.
I couldn't agree more. Well said. The problem is, where are you going to play him? What do you do, Blair? What do you do if Arizona Stadium, you can't play in it? Where do you play?
You'd have to play in Glendale. I mean, and maybe you could put a game, trade a home game with TV and put it up in Las Vegas, or even out in, I don't know, San Diego or LA. I mean, if you could get a game in a TV market, something like that, it might work. But I've heard a lot of great comments about that experience and that stadium experience from you guys and some other people that were there. And one thing that I know Desiree Reed-Francois is very big on is she loves surveys, right? She sends surveys all the time for people about what was their experience like and what recommendations do they have. I wish they would just survey people that went to that game and find out exactly what did they like about that experience, because
it's a good idea.
We all complain about Arizona Stadium. We all have our, some people don't like the restrooms or the concessions. Some people don't like the comfort of the chairs, the seat backs. Some people don't like the audio or the video board. Well, we had a lot of people. We had thousands of people that were there in San Diego that had a positive experience at the stadium. Let's find out the positive things they liked about that stadium as opposed to what they didn't like about ours or what they wish was different about ours. I'd kind of like to focus on some positives, and I think it'd be a neat way to survey our fans.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And it was a cool experience. More bathrooms. I was telling Shane, I have like PTSD from the first game where they played San Diego State. That was T-Mac's first game because it was 103 degrees outside. There's no shade. There's no shade anywhere in that stadium, basically. And it was just brutal. They had no working ice machines a few years ago. So now I come back and, it's raining a little bit, but it was a good experience. We had a good time, and we sure the heck broke down this game. So
and Arizona did win the game you went to a few years back.
Yeah,
they did. And it was the first win that I had seen in like years in like 2 years.
Right.
Because I didn't go to any of the 2020 games. So this game was played in 2021. I was not at the Cal game.
The one game they won, you were, yeah.
Right. So basically it was my first win seeing in person since 2019. So that was a special, despite the fact that I was like literally drenched. All right, Shane, let's transition here. We're going to make some Arizona basketball picks later on. Some Shane standouts. I know you have a few different. I don't know if I'd call this one some standout, but there's some things you want to discuss.
I got some standouts here, and we'll go to basketball. I can't say enough about Toby Awaka. Find me a better sixth man in college hoops right now. The rebounding, the defense, and now apparently the 3-point shooting. We saw in the win at Utah. It's kind of a funny game because they Arizona got up by double digits in the first 5 minutes, and they essentially stood pat for the next 35, which is fine. But Toby Awaka just continues to impress, and he's gonna be, it can be a big difference maker come March, which you could say about all 7 of the other guys in the rotation. Shout out again to Teteroa McMillan for reaching 1,000 receiving yards in his rookie season. The Panthers backdoored their way to the playoffs. But look, best of luck to T-Mac in the wild card round against the Rams. The Rams are actually my favorite. Yeah, I think the Rams are actually my favorite to win the NFC. I still think they're the best team in the NFC.
Yep.
But hopefully, even if that happens, T-Mac shows out. Getting 1,000 yards receiving in that offense is very impressive. And then finally, I want to mention Tyler Loop. I'm sure like all of us did, felt awful watching that kick sail wide against the Steelers. Even if you're a Steelers fan and a U of A fan, you had to feel that way. It's the only field goal inside 50 yards he missed all season. The online response was predictably horrific. His fiance was getting one nasty message after another on Instagram. And of course, Tyler isn't the first Arizona kicker to receive that kind of treatment online. We remember Casey Scowen got some of that after missing a kick against USC in 2014. And I'm glad Casey had a chance to redeem himself later in the year. Tyler does not get that chance this year. But you know what? I'm going to call him a standout because of how he handled it post-game. He talked to the press, took accountability. There's only so much you can say in that situation, but he took accountability. He discussed how he'll rely on his faith to help him navigate this and move on, looking as an opportunity to grow. The kid's a winner, and I hope he has another chance to kick for Baltimore next year because I think he's going to make those kicks in the future if he has that opportunity. So feel for Tyler Loop, and I think he had a great rookie season. It's impossible not to think about his name, without thinking about that kick now, but hopefully it will not define the rest of his career, and I don't think he'll let it define the rest of his career.
That was probably, arguably the most important regular season kick in NFL history. I read a stat. It was the only time that a kick has come down to the last play of the game, last play of the season, no time on the clock with both teams' playoff futures up in the air. And he shanked it. That was bad. So, good stuff. We're going to talk a little basketball coming up in the next segment. But as always, want to remind you that Harrah's Auction Casino is the sponsor of Wildcat Country, and we are always glad to have them on board for especially another year doing this program. So where can you get $15 in free slot play today? At Harrah's Auction Casino. Want more? At Harrah's Auction, just sign up for Caesars Rewards, and $15 is yours. Plus, earn up to $100 in additional free slot play. Caesars Rewards is the nation's #1 players card, and Harrah's Auction is the only local casino that has it. Use your $15 in free slot play to earn perks at more than 50 destinations from coast to coast. That free slot play could earn you dinner in Vegas, hotel stays in New Orleans, and more. What are you waiting for? Sign up today. Take a spin with your $15 in free slot play and earn up to $100 more. Harrah's Auction Casino is your home for free slot play and more. Play for all. Coming up next, let's make a lot of picks. Super Bowl, college football semifinals, and hey, let's talk a couple Arizona basketball games here on Wildcat Country.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi folks, here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for all at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
All right, we are back with Blair Willis on the whole show. Blair, I told you, every time you come on, you do the whole show with us. The only guest that does it, so we always appreciate it. So we're going to start with you. Let's talk. I know this is a college show, but we got we alluded to the Super Bowl, T-Max in the playoffs. We know that Carolina has absolutely no chance of making the Super Bowl. They don't. Give me your Super Bowl matchup and winner as of now.
Boy, I thought this one might get buried in the picks. I wasn't quite ready for this one.
I wasn't either, Blair. That's what he does.
You guys mentioned Rams earlier. I like the Rams from the NFC. So then who do I have to take from the AFC? Boy.
I could share mine while you're thinking about it.
Go ahead.
You go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
We all like the Rams, right?
I like the Rams in the NFC, which actually concerns me now that we're all picking them. But Rams in the NFC. So my prediction is that both representatives in the Super Bowl will be wild card teams. So the Rams in the NFC. In the AFC, I'd love to see the Bills finally come out because my second favorite team, my dad's side of the family is all from Western New York. I kind of like the Texans. I like their defense.
We agree. We agree.
Yeah, I think that the Texans' defense is outstanding. Their offense is good enough. I like Rams over Texans in the Super Bowl.
So do I. Betting my futures as we speak. Rams over Texans. All right, Blair, what do you think?
Well, the funny thing is the Texans were the team at the top of my head. I was trying to make sure I knew all the other teams. Shane mentioned the Bills. Let's just say I think, let's say Josh Allen and the Bills kind of put everything together and go on a run and get to the Super Bowl, but I'll still take the Rams over the Bills.
You know what? I'll add to that, Blair, is I feel like just, like following the Bills as much as I had, and my sister's the biggest Bills fan you'll ever meet. She suffered more than me, and I'm an Arizona pro sports fan, so that's saying something. I feel like the Bills if they're going to finally win it all, they're going to do it the hard way. 3 road games and then a tough Super Bowl. So if they were to do it, this is the way they'd do it.
All right, let's make college football semifinal picks. I was really bad. I mean, really, really bad.
You and everyone else.
I mean, I went 0 for 4 in the college football playoff. Shane, you are up 9 points on me this year. I definitely cannot catch that with 3 games to go. So congratulations on kicking my butt this season in picks. And that was just summed up by my awful picks in the college football playoff. All right, let's start with the Fiesta Bowl on Thursday night. Ole Miss is playing Miami, who is a 3.5-point favorite. I'm going to start. My parents went to Miami. I picked against them against Ohio State. Shane, you asked me if I'd be disowned by doing that last time. I was not, but I'm not going to make the same mistake again. I think Miami steps up, rises up to the challenge, wins this game by a touchdown or so. I love that defensive line. So I'm going Miami to cover. What do you say, Shane?
It's an interesting line, but I feel, they're two good feel-good stories. Miami, backdooring their way in, and then Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin. I love the Ole Miss story. I think my brain's telling me Miami, and my heart's telling me Ole Miss. And so just for the sake of, just to give you a chance to sneak up a little bit, I'll go ahead and take Ole Miss to cover, and I'll take them to win outright too.
Wow. Okay, Blair, what do you say?
Yeah. I think from what I've seen from these teams in the recent weeks, I think Miami's the better team. I do like the way that they're playing. but I've also seen Miami play well in the past. I've seen Coach Cristobal have some pretty good teams and some pretty good spots in some pretty good moments and not get the job done. Yeah. And so that's why I think this little kind of Cinderella Ole Miss team almost, with all the craziness going on there, I think Ole Miss finds a way to win this one and kind of stun Miami.
All right, fair enough. So I'm on an island there, but the way I've been picking them, I don't blame you guys. How about the Peach Bowl? It's a tough one. I have doubted Indiana over and over and over. Now they're giving Oregon 4 points. Remember, they beat Oregon by 10 earlier in the season. Shane, what do you say?
Yeah, it's an interesting line. I on one hand, I guess it makes sense. On the other hand, I'm kind of surprised it's that close. I'm not going against Indiana again. I mean, I don't see how anyone could. They keep proving everyone wrong. I think it's that uniform bias. Seeing Indiana football really. If they were in with the Ohio State uniforms or an SEC team's uniforms, you wouldn't have these thoughts. Indiana's been the best team in the country. I mean, along with Ohio State, but they beat Ohio State, and then Ohio State lost to Miami. They're anointed right now as the best team in the country, and I'm going to go with them until proven otherwise. They beat Oregon and Eugene by 10. I don't see why they wouldn't do the same in a neutral site. So I'm going to take the Hoosiers.
Blair, what do you say?
Yeah, I was surprised when I read the line that you posted for this one. I thought this just kind of naive. I thought it was probably Indiana -6, 6.5. Really? Yeah. I thought it was going to be kind of a, man, do you think Indiana can win by a touchdown? But yeah, 4 is an interesting number, which makes me think that this might be a pretty tight game. Dan Lanning's done a great job at Oregon. He's really revamped their defense. They're much tougher up front than they used to be, at least in, say, the last 10 years. When you watch this Indiana team, they are so physical. They're so disciplined. They've got enough talent, at the receiver positions. Obviously, Mendoza's just doing a terrific job as the Heisman winner at quarterback. The edge that they're playing with, Oregon always brings an edge. Indiana already got them at their place. To me, there's no way Curt Cignetti does not have his team focused. They're not even thinking about the last matchup, and if they are, they're probably thinking they could beat Oregon by more. I'm going to take Indiana to win and cover.
I'm on an island again, which means you guys are probably going to win. I'm going to roll with the Ducks here. I just think the revenge angle is one that I'm going to go with, and I think Will Stein's going to draw up a good game plan, even though he's going to Kentucky. After this game or the championship game, I think he's going to draw up a good game plan. Now, Indiana has not given up more than 24 points all season. That defense is legit, but I think Oregon gets him, and I see something like 27-24. Oregon, I'm leaning towards the over, even though I'm probably crazy with that pick, the way that Indiana has played defensively. But I'm going on an island with you against you guys, which means if you guys know what to do, Ole Miss and Indiana is probably the play. All right, let's talk a little Arizona basketball. This is probably the least we're going to talk basketball until March on a show. So let's make some picks here. Arizona hosts Kansas State on Wednesday night. They are undefeated. They are 14-0. Blair, how many points will the Wildcats beat the Wildcats by?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we only won by 19 a couple nights ago, right? Or a couple days ago on Saturday. It's going to be interesting to watch, now as we get into Big 12 play, because Utah is probably the worst team in the conference. We're going to get a bunch of teams kind of like Kansas State and that are kind of going to be fringe tournament teams if they can have a good winning record in conference play. And then there's going to be the gauntlet when we get to the end of January and through February of every game is going to be a tournament quality team. So I am personally getting a little bit bored of watching our team win by 20. I don't necessarily need it to be a close game against Kansas State at home, but I want to see. My favorite thing about this team is our competitive juices. Jaden Bradley's always had the competitive juices. Toby Awaka's got it, but these freshmen too. Koa Pete showed it against Florida in the opener. Ivan Karchenkov, he might be the most exciting player when he gets angry on the court. Yeah. So I'm looking for some tense moments. I want to see this team challenged. I don't think it comes though on Wednesday night. I think the Arizona Wildcats beat the K-State Wildcats. We'll call it by 18.
By 18, Shane. I have Arizona by 20. What do you say?
I think it's the third straight week where we have them by the same margin, and I keep going over you by 1, so I'm going to say by 21. K-State, I agree with Blair. K-State, they're 65th overall in Ken Palm offense, 100th in defense. Arizona's at home. This is kind of the eye of the hurricane in terms of their schedule, which can be tricky. The eye of the hurricane can be ominous, but I don't expect Arizona to be challenged too much at home in this game. So I'm going to say, you say 20, I'll say Cats by 21. The Arizona Cats specifically.
Okay. And now on Saturday at TCU, I think this is going to be a dangerous game for Arizona. I think, TCU has nothing to lose. I think they've won something like 6 in a row. Now, they played Kansas before Arizona, so that's tricky. But I think they are going to play with nothing to lose. And even though I don't like Jamie Dixon as a coach, I think they keep it and make it. I think Arizona edges this one out. A couple free throws at the end, provide a little cushion, but give me Arizona by 5. Blair, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Eric. I think this is going to be tough, and I think Arizona's got to take care of business first, right? Against Kansas State at home. So what the mindset is going into Fort Worth, it's going to be largely dependent upon how Wednesday night goes in McHale. But let's say Arizona, as the three of us have predicted, is able to take care of business, wins relatively comfortably against Kansas State. I think Tommy will challenge his group to have them laser focused going into this game, because he wants his team challenged too. And he knows how hungry these teams in the Big 12 are going to be to get their shot in their home arena to take down the number 1 team in the country. So I think Tommy will have his bunch focused, but I think TCU puts up a great fight. Jamie Dixon, good coach. He's going to have that team well prepared. They're going to play confident, hungry. I think Arizona is just balanced enough. I think we're steady enough and just a little more talented 1 through 8. To pull through in the second half. I'll take Arizona by 8, but I think it's close much of the way.
All right, Shane, you're not going to pick TCU, are you?
No, but I am worried that we're all agreeing so much. I do think TCU is going to be a tough game. They have an outstanding defense. They're 19th in KenPom. They don't turn the ball over much, about 11 turnovers a game. They've won 8 of their last 9. They lost by just 4 points to Michigan earlier this season. Michigan team that's blown out just about everyone else. And that was a 2-point game in the final minute. So I think this could be similar to the San Diego State game, except this is going to be a true road game for Arizona. It's going to be a little more difficult. I'll take Arizona to win, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was their first loss. I'm not going to predict it, but I wouldn't be shocked if it happened. I think it's going to come down to the final couple minutes. Give me Arizona by 3. I'll say Jaden Bradley works some late game magic again to help U of A stay undefeated.
And there you have it. Boy, we covered a lot of ground on this show. Blair, as always, thank you for joining us. Your insight is unmatched. And just what you've seen over the years. Like, you can provide that historical context, which none of us can. You've seen it firsthand at all these games, home and away. So it was great to be able to do this with you. Thanks for joining us here on fairly short notice. So for Blair Willis and Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening, and as always, bear down.